The life within my name is Iziel, and I was born in the city of Fes. I am, or was, Moroccan, and I lived my entire life along the banks of Jar River. That is, until the dark shadow of death extinguished the light of my soul. I had been a baker. I baked bread for a living, and my life was ordinary. The sun rose and set with a regularity that gave comfort. Time moved forward, and I perceived life as having a beginning and an end, which makes living in this world of shadows all the more frustrating. For in this place, one experiences life as though it is being lived in a constant state of déjà vu, which means there are no new moments, only those that are relived constantly in random order. There are 39 of us living in this crystalline world. 39 splintered souls, each represents 1 year from a rather short life. The oldest of us remembers our death. I had fallen from a giant persimmon tree into whose limbs I had climbed to retrieve the last of the year's crop for my daughter. The youngest of us, who still sees the world through the eyes of God, retains the memories of our birth. Together we share this world of recollection. When I was alive, time appeared to flow forward like a wave, upon whose crest my consciousness would ride. But within this world we inhabit now, the flow of consciousness passes at random, from one life year to another. One moment you are experiencing the angst of your 17-year-old self, the next you are viewing the world through the eyes of a child. As a child I would often sit in the mosque and consider the beauty of the symmetric blue tiles that float around the perimeter of the room. This contemplation would eventually lead me to believe that my God, the God of Abraham, must be a meticulous God, a God of order, of purpose and design. And similarly, as I stand on the ground of this ever-changing world and look up to the great vaulted ceiling that encompasses this afterlife, I can perceive His presence, for within the cracks and crevices, fissures, and facets that reflect the underlying symmetry of the emerald green crystal that comprises the dome, I have witnessed while memories of my most bitter pain are released from my consciousness through the most merciful acts of divine grace. I have experienced a healing I never thought possible, and as time passes, the true essence of my soul has become refined. Freed from the sorrows that had wrapped themselves around my heart, I now find great comfort watching as memories of my past life pour down about me in the form of holographic streams. While I love each one of my 39 lives, my favorite year is my 27th, for that was the year I met my wife, Alia, who woke within me the awareness of what life is about. She was the one who taught me to see and appreciate the beauty of the world. Now, whenever my consciousness lights upon my 27th year, I partake in my favorite pastime, which is to lie upon my back and allow the shifting streams of shadow and light to resurrect about me the sweet joys of my former life. Memories from my childhood return to me in vivid detail, and as I lie watching, I reach out and cup my hand into the various streams of memory, connecting back into moments from an earlier time. For there is, I shall say, a resonance that occurs between the viewer of memories and one's younger self from which the memories are created. And while I'll never know for certain whether or not I can advise or forewarn my younger self of tragic events or missed opportunities, I do feel there is a bond that has transcended my death. I now suspect that I have been my own guardian angel. For in the quiet of my world, whenever the reins of memory allow, I often seek to bridge back to the innocence of my youth. Through a concerted effort using a technique involving mindfulness and contemplation, I strive to align myself with the crest of my younger self's consciousness, back to where I will witness not only the unfolding of the universe but also perceive how my younger self viewed his world. And as I fall into this process, this creation of memories, I attempt to impart a better understanding of events as seen through a lifetime of experience. I have no measure for success, for there is no possible way to verify if I have been able to alter the past. There are only hints and whispers that the pain in this life has lessened over the years. And I do this not so much to improve the quality of life as experienced during my end years, but rather out of compassion for the child. When we first arrived in this world of polished crystal, the elder members of my 39 years took turns exploring the walls that have contained us. Cool, green, and angular, it did not take us long to realize that we had become prisoners within a luminous body of reflected memories. Reaching out, we have touched the outer surface, and as we place our hands upon the cold face of the crystal, we can feel the pulse and vibration of a great current flowing over and above the confines of this world. In the early days, there was much confusion and disorientation about not only the transition from the land of the living into this world of shadows, but also after we had awoken from the sleep of death, there was a great sensation of rolling and tumbling. It was as though this world of stone was being carried along within the flow of a great river. But it is agreed by all that at least since year 2, there has been little or no movement. There is only the queer, faint sound of the wailing of souls that can only be heard by placing one's ear up against the crystalline wall. It is the sound of souls in transit, washing over us, out there on the other side. This has led us to believe that we are not alone, that there may be others like us imprisoned within their own sets of memories. Then there is the issue of dreams. Who knew that dead people dream? Or, should I say, are called into the dreams of the living? For those who are left behind, there is often a great longing to reunite with the departed. And it is through this passion that the barrier between the land of dreams and the world of the afterlife is breached, drawing the souls of the dead into the phantasmal ether of the unconscious mind. Many a time, especially during the first few years after my death, I have found myself within the shifting visions of my wife's dreams. While she only experiences a reunion through the lens of sleep, I return to my world with a fresh set of memories that I store deep within the heart of the crystal. For it has been this cache of memories, reflecting the sweetness of her love, that has sustained me over the years and allowed me to keep my sanity. It has been a while, many years in fact, since I have appeared in anyone's dreams. I suspect now that most of my family and friends and people that I knew have already passed over. I would say that my last encounter in the dreams of the living occurred 10 years ago. I was called into the silent mind of Ishmael, a deaf boy with curly red hair who visited my bakery every morning as I threw the rounds of dough into the stone oven. For some reason the heat that radiated from the great ovens fascinated him. Within his dream I found myself standing atop a tall mountain on which a golden skeleton stood. It was trying to communicate to me using sign language, for it could not speak, as its bones bore no flesh. Ishmael stood next to me and was able to speak. He interpreted what the skeleton was saying and delivered a prophecy. In the land of crystal and reflected past, where time is broken and memories fade ever more slowly out of mind, you will find your way to the other side through the writing on the wall. And for those of you who are left behind, do not despair, for you too shall be released. But through the measured grace of God, I did not understand the riddled message, so through the boy I asked the golden skeleton to explain. With shaking bones and clanking fingers, the being looked at me through its empty eye sockets and delivered his second revelation. The soul of the dead is nothing more than a collective of memories that slowly dissolves with the passage of time. Needless to say, I was a bit disappointed with the communique, for it was not something I had not already discerned, but before I had a chance to complain, the skeleton collapsed into a pile of gold, and I awoke from my dream. Those within the collective of the self, who were old enough to know what was going on, pondered the meaning of this dream for several years. This worked out well, for each age perceives the world through a different lens. The young understand the magic of the universe, while the older ones perceive its laws. Taking turns, we searched the crystalline walls for any sign of the written word. With great care we ran our fingers over every exposed surface in hopes of finding hidden indentations or carvings in the rock. It took us 647 days to explore every hidden corner of our angular world, but in the end, nothing was revealed. It was only through the love for my wife that the riddle posed by a dead man in a boy's dream could be solved. It was about 2 years after the time of wandering through the walls of glass. The flow of consciousness had settled upon my 27th year, and with his allotted time, he decided to take a walk along a section of crystal that was irregular in shape and known to be a particularly strong conduit for memories. And he came across an outcropping made not of regular stone but rather one of higher quality. The light reflected so clearly and the images of memory were so pristine that when he lay his hands down upon its surface, the visions revealed were as though he were looking into the bottom of a clear mountain stream. He became so enamored with this place that with every conscious moment he was granted, he would spend gazing down upon his beloved. And as humans are prone to do when wounded in love, he shed tears that would fall upon the reflections flowing beneath the surface of the stone. It was through inspiration born of this pain and longing that he reached down and began to compose a poem of love and remembrance to Alia upon the condensation that had formed from the moisture of his tears on the outer layer of the crystal. His initial composition was of their first kiss, a kiss that had been stolen underneath the crescent moon. When he finished crafting his words, he stood back and reflected upon the images he had created. As he read the sonnet quietly to himself, letters, words, and then whole sentences began to dissipate as his tears dried. Within moments the treasured memory completely disappeared from the face of the stone. When the last of his words faded from view, any remembrance of the embrace, which he had carried with him throughout his life, ascended slowly toward the crystalline skyline and away from his awareness. He did not feel a loss, for there was no longer a memory of the kiss, but what he did feel was a lightness of being, a leavening of the soul. Standing there in the emerald green haze that filtered down from above, he realized that the sensation he was experiencing was a result of his writing a moment from his past upon the surface of the stone. Wishing to prolong or repeat the experience, he reached down into a small pool of still water and sprinkled droplets upon the stone's cold exterior to momentarily create a slate of dew. My 27th year thought clearly about his year of life, and he carefully chose a moment in time when he had accidentally hurt someone he loved. He was pouring tea for his father. They were joking, and he was carrying on about a foolish mistake his wife had made while shopping at the market, buying a bundle of mint that turned out to be basil leaf. It was an insignificant matter, but the two men, thinking they were alone, admonished her misfortune with chauvinistic zeal. What he did not realize was that Alia had been standing outside their door and had heard every word. She was a sensitive soul, and she took the criticism to heart. When they lay together that night, she was cold and distant. For several weeks she carried her pain, never saying a word. As a somewhat unenlightened man, it took a while for my younger self to notice that something was wrong. Not until he arrived home one day from work to find their bed covered with the mistaken basil leaves did he realize she had heard every word he and his father had spoken. With the desire to repair the damage he had caused their relationship, he called for Alia to come into the room. Removing her veil, he gently cupped her face between the palms of his calloused hands and asked for her forgiveness. Knowing that Aziel had yet neither to shed his immaturity nor come to understand the power of words, she found it within her heart to forgive her foolish husband. As with the memory of the kiss, when the letters of his confession faded from view, the hurt within, and all its associated memories, split off like a thin sheet of mica from his memory. Ever so slowly they floated up, and, as he watched, he saw them pass through the outer shell of the emerald, which had contained him since falling to his death. In less than half an hour I, in my 27th year, had experienced the departure of all memories connected to two pivotal moments from my rather short life. And I felt diminished as if I had experienced a contraction of the soul. I realized then that I had mastered the riddle of the Golden One, that through the writing on the wall, my soul would be set free. For the next 46 minutes, I wrote of transgressions and moments of haunting pain, editing my soul as though I were weeding a garden. I wanted to continue, finally having the power to shape the life I had always wanted. To be free of hurt, to experience life in peace, but when the time comes for our shared consciousness to roll over to another year of life, there is nothing that can be done to prevent it. There is, however, a brief moment during the transition when greetings can be passed from one life year to the next, and it was my hope to be able to pass on my discovery, to share the secret with the other lives.